Next, we are going to go to part 2 for podcast recording. If you are recording using the microphone SM7Bs, I have 6 of them spread out throughout the room. Those are going to be tied in to the Tone Beast as well as the Focusrite preamps. The Focusrite preamps have 80 dBs of gain and allow you to get some volume from quiet talkers. If we're recording a podcast, we will need to select the appropriate microphones. So the microphone that I am talking on now is the Tone Beast TB12, and it's going to be the top preamp on the rack. The next 4 microphones I have are the 4 podcast microphones located at seat 1, seat 2, the DJ stand, and the video stand. And then the 6th microphone is the second Tone Beast, and that is the couch microphone for anyone sitting on the couch area. If you need to record a podcast with more than 6 people, I also have 2 high-end Shure lavalier microphones that we can wire people up with, and they can sit wherever, giving us a total of 8 people on microphone if needed for a podcast of that size. Most podcasts don't need to be that size because it's hard to differentiate whose turn it is to talk. We don't recommend doing a podcast that size unless you have a lot of experience both with Pro Tools and with podcasting. Once you've done several podcasts and you're familiar with how to keep your guests on the right path without turning into a bunch of arguing or turning into people talking over each other, then you could probably migrate into a larger podcast. A lot of times people just want to be on the microphone even though they don't have anything of substance to say. So if you have a group of 8, you have to ask yourself, are these people going to be adding value to my podcast? If that answer is no, sit them on the couch without a microphone and let them watch. If you think they are going to be adding value, then you might want to give them a microphone. There's also plenty of instances where people can share a microphone if they're only going to be referenced once or twice throughout the podcast. The Focusrite preamp controls the beginning of your signal flow from your podcast share microphones. You will not see any signal flow until the Focusrite preamp is turned on. You'll notice on the preamp that there are LED meters as well as VU meters. Do not get lost in looking at the VU meters. The VU meters take a moment to respond, but the LED meters are instant. If you see your LED meter peaking, then you need to turn the preamp volume of that particular microphone down. There is a button down here, 30 to 60, for your dB. That needs to stay enabled because you need a lot of dB manipulation for these microphones. We need a large stage of gain, okay? So you'll notice the input is the microphone input. My 30 to 60 dB gauge gain stage is here, and then I can raise it here, okay? This center button is if you have an instrument plugged in. If you have somebody who's bringing a guitar or another musical instrument, they can plug it in on any one of these 6 instrument channels via 1/4 inch located in the front of the rack. We do not want anyone going behind the rack rewiring anything. Inputs and outputs need to stay the same. If someone has an instrument, you can easily plug them into one of the Tone Beasts if you're not using those microphones, or any one of the Focusrite channels that you are not using, and then whatever instrument you plugged in, you'll change the input to instrument, plug it into channel 1, and it will show up on Pro Tools on channel 5, and this is going to be your instrument gain. since we are using microphones, almost always I'm going to put it back on the microphone, okay? And then this knob is going to manipulate your gain structure from your signal coming into the interface. Signal flow. We talked about it in the last segment. Signal flow comes out from the podcast microphone into the preamp, and then from the preamp into the Apollo. Now, on the Apollo, this microphone I'm speaking to right now is channel 3. Podcast mic 1 is also channel 5 on the interface. So 5, 6, 7, 8 is your 4 main podcast microphones if you are recording another podcast session or a radio show where it has multiple people. And then you will need to assign each track to each microphone. So I'm on the Tone Beast 12, the very top preamp. The second Tone Beast 12 is for the last microphone in the chain. I know it can get a little confusing. But channels 5, 6, 7, and 8 are your 4 Shure microphones that are next. So if I wanted to record 5 microphones at once for a podcast, see how this is Focusrite, abbreviated Focusrite 1, podcast mic left. Okay. We'll turn that record enabled on, and that's selected to my microphone. We will put it on podcast mic 2. Podcast mic 3 is the DJ mic, and you can see that they are all clearly labeled in the computer, and if you needed, we will have a handbook for you as well. And then podcast mic 4 at the video station. And now I could record a 5-person podcast with just pressing the play button. If I press the play button, it now is recording all of these tracks at once. And so every time someone spoke, all of their audio is going to be on their own track. If you wanted to fix something, edit something, or manipulate something later, you will have every single person tracked out. Now, Audio 1 channel is my microphone, and you'll notice the waveform on my microphone is almost perfect. If the waveform is chopping the top of the waveform off, you'll never be able to fix that audio. So before you even start your podcast, I recommend hitting record, having everyone talk, and having them speak at all volumes that they're going to talk at in the podcast. If somebody is a quiet talker when they're doing a microphone check, but then when they get into the podcast, they get real excited and they start talking with enthusiasm, that's going to affect the tonality and the waveform. You can kind of see how as I got a little excited that the waveform jumped up and part of it got a little chopped off. I would then want to lower my overall volume, and I can add compression later to equal out my audio levels. There is no compression before the interface on the podcast microphones. So therefore, it is extremely important that you get your levels correct the first time. If you record distorted audio, I cannot fix it. I cannot stress this enough. Do not spend a bunch of time, energy, and money only to record a session that has distorted audio and then needs to be redone. I've been there more times than I can count. It happens. It even happens to me to this day. Different mistakes happen. I might be recording on 2 or 3 different stages of audio, 2 or 3 different pieces of equipment, and I might not get my stage of gain figured out properly. So take all the time that you need ahead of time to ensure that you have proper audio levels from your microphones. I'm going to stop the recording. If you are doing a podcast that is only talking, you're not playing any clips, you're not referencing any video, your DJ's not playing any sounds, it's not a radio show, you don't need to wear the headphones because everyone in the room can hear you. But if you're doing a podcast where they're going to be playing different sounds for you to talk about, playing videos that you want to recap, you need to wear the headphones so that you can hear those videos and hear those sounds without them coming through the speakers and distorting your recorded audio. Okay? So now we've tested our audio. Just going to click, highlight, drag, and hit the delete button. It's just that simple. Then I hit the back button. I hit the record enabled button. You'll notice there's a P on my record enabled button because I have it set for punching in. I like to leave it like that personally. Other people do not. It doesn't matter. Just a personal preference. And then when I'm ready to start our podcast, 3, 2, 1, go. I just hit the play button, and now it's recording my podcast audio. If this podcast included the DJ, we would all need to wear headphones, and I would need to add DJ table L for left and DJ table R for right. Stereo things require 2 channels. Okay? And then I'll hit record enabled there, and then anytime the DJ plays a sound from the DJ table, it will also be recorded on its own individual track. Pro Tools allows you to record as many tracks as you want at once, but we are limited to the interface of 16 channels. So we can record 16 channels at once if we need to, and there is a list of what those are at the desk. Channels 15 and 16 is the audio coming from the video computer. Channels 9 through 12 are additional microphones, lavalier microphones, and channels 1 through 8 we've already went over. That is going to give you pretty much all the information you need to record a podcast segment in Pro Tools in the White Room. Stay tuned for part 3.